My family threw me out after my sister wrongly accused me of stealing her engagement ring. 3 years later, they found it jammed in the garbage disposal. I never thought I'd be telling this story, but here we are. My name's Nathan, I'm 26, and 3 years ago, my entire world got flipped upside down because of a lie my older sister, Sophie, told. She's 29 now. We grew up in a small town in Ohio with our parents, Mark and Carol, Dad's 55, Mom's 53. Our home wasn't anything extravagant, just a simple 2-story house they bought right after they got married. But to us, it was everything. Dad spent his days teaching high school math, and Mom worked long shifts as a nurse at the local hospital. We weren't rolling in money, but we always had what we needed. Growing up, Sophie and I were inseparable. We'd spend hours outside, running through the backyard, climbing the old oak tree, and making up elaborate games. She was always the mastermind, setting the rules and coming up with the stories, and I was happy to go along with whatever she imagined. But things changed as we got older. Sophie had always been the ambitious one, top of her class, debate team captain, and just naturally good at everything she put her mind to. Meanwhile, I was more easygoing. I did okay in school, but I didn't have that same drive she did. And as we got into our teenage years, that difference started creating distance between us. By the time she left for college, we were barely close anymore. She got a scholarship to a prestigious university, while I stayed in town and enrolled at the local community college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. After graduation, Sophie moved to the city and landed a job at a big marketing firm. Whenever she visited for the holidays or occasional weekends, she'd have all these stories about her exciting career and city life. I couldn't help but feel like I paled in comparison. I was still living at home, working part-time at the grocery store, and trying to figure out my next steps. Even with all that, I never thought there was any real tension between us. Sure, we weren't as close as we once were, but I figured that was just part of growing up. I had no idea how fast everything was about to fall apart. 3 years ago, Sophie got engaged to her boyfriend, Daniel. He was 31, a lawyer, and from a wealthy family. My parents absolutely adored him. When he proposed, he gave her a gorgeous diamond ring that had been passed down through his family for generations. Sophie was over the moon, flashing it around every chance she got. To celebrate, my parents threw a huge engagement party, inviting practically half the town. I remember feeling out of place, surrounded by all these well-dressed city folks that Sophie and Daniel had brought along. I mostly stuck with my old high school friends, the few that were still around, since they were the only ones I felt comfortable with. A month later, everything imploded. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon, and I had the day off work. I was in my room, gaming, enjoying the peace and quiet. Sophie was home for the week, taking time off to help Mom start planning the wedding. At some point, I heard her and Mom come back from shopping, chatting and laughing downstairs. I didn't think much of it and kept playing my game. About an hour later, a scream tore through the house. I bolted downstairs and found Sophie in a panic. She was furious, accusing me of stealing her engagement ring. She claimed she had taken it off while washing dishes and left it on the kitchen counter, but now it was gone. I was completely blindsided. I swore up and down that I hadn't touched it, but she wasn't having it. She kept shouting that I was the only other person in the house, so it had to be me. Then she started throwing all these accusations at me, saying I was jealous of her, that I wanted to sell the ring to finally get out of the house and do something with my life. Before I could even process what was happening, our parents came home to the chaos. Sophie told them her version of events, and to my horror, they instantly took her side. Mom broke down crying, asking how I could do something so terrible to my own sister. Dad didn't yell, but the disappointment in his eyes hit me like a punch to the gut. They tore through my room, flipping everything upside down in search of the ring. Of course, they didn't find it. But they did come across some cash I had been saving from my grocery store job, just a few $100s. That was all the proof Sophie needed. She immediately pointed at the money, saying I must have sold the ring and that's where the cash came from. I tried explaining that I'd been putting it aside for months, thinking about taking some classes at community college. But no one listened. The next few days were hell. My parents and Sophie kept hammering me, demanding I confess and give the ring back. They even threatened to call the police if I didn't fess up. I was terrified, and worst of all, I had no one to turn to. My own family saw me as a thief. My old friends had mostly moved away, and the ones still around didn't want to get caught up in the drama. I felt completely alone. After a week of relentless accusations, my parents dropped the hammer. They told me to pack my things and leave. They said they couldn't trust me anymore and that I was bringing shame to the family. I had no clue what to do. Nowhere to go. I was absolutely gutted. The only saving grace was my best friend from high school, Lucas. He had just come back from serving in the army and offered to let me crash on his couch for a while. I was grateful, but I knew I couldn't stay there forever. And just like that, my life as I knew it was over. Lucas's apartment was tiny, and he was still trying to get his life back on track. I stuffed whatever I could into a backpack and an old duffel bag, some clothes, a few books, my laptop, and a handful of keepsakes from better days. As I walked out the door, I glanced up and saw Sophie watching me from her bedroom window. For a split second, I thought I saw hesitation in her eyes, maybe even guilt. But just as quickly, she turned away. Stepping out of that house, the only home I'd ever known, was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I felt like I'd been discarded, abandoned by the people who were supposed to stand by me no matter what. The worst part? I hadn't done a damn thing wrong. For the next 2 months, I bounced between Lucas's couch and cheap motels whenever I could afford it. I took on whatever odd jobs came my way just to scrape by, washing dishes, walking dogs, even working on a construction crew for a few weeks. It wasn't easy, but I refused to let that false accusation define me. I had to prove, to myself more than anyone, that I could survive on my own. Eventually, I landed a steady job at a warehouse on the outskirts of town. The work was tough, the hours long, but at least the paycheck was reliable. It wasn't much, but it was enough for me to rent a small room in a shared house with a few other guys from the warehouse. Slowly, I started rebuilding my life. But no matter how much progress I made, the betrayal still lingered. Most nights, I lay awake, replaying everything over and over in my head, trying to make sense of how things had spiraled so fast. How had my own family turned on me so easily? How could Sophie, my own sister, the person who'd known me better than anyone, believe I was capable of something so low? I cut off all contact with them. At first, they tried reaching out. Mom left teary voicemails, begging me to come home and make things right. Dad sent a few short messages saying we needed to talk. Sophie even showed up at my job once. I refused to see her. I couldn't. Not after what they did. As far as I was concerned, they weren't my family anymore. For years, that's how I lived. I built a new life from the ground up. I made friends with my coworkers and housemates, spending nights after shifts drinking lemonade and watching whatever game was on. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it was mine. I worked my ass off and eventually got promoted to shift supervisor. Wanting more for myself, I started taking online business management courses. Slowly, I was piecing together a future. But no matter how much I moved forward, the bitterness never faded. Every holiday season was a reminder of what I'd lost. Seeing families out shopping together, hearing Christmas music in the stores, it always hit me like a gut punch. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email from my dad. The subject line was simple: "We need to talk." The message itself was short. He said they needed to see me right away, that it was about the ring. At first, I was ready to ignore it, like I had with all their previous attempts to reach out. But something about it made me pause. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe, deep down, I still wanted some kind of closure. I spent hours debating with myself before finally picking up the phone. When I called my dad, what he told me left me speechless. They had found the ring. Turns out, Sophie had knocked it into the garbage disposal by accident while doing the dishes. She only realized it when the disposal started making weird noises, and they had to call a plumber to check it out. The moment she saw it, everything clicked. I had been telling the truth all along. Dad said Sophie was devastated when she realized what had happened. They all felt awful about what they had put me through and wanted to make amends. I hung up the phone, my mind spinning. On one hand, I felt vindicated. The truth was out. Everyone finally knew I wasn't the thief they had painted me to be. But at the same time, I was furious. It had taken them years to uncover the truth. Years that I had spent alone, struggling, fighting to rebuild a life that never should have been torn apart in the first place. Now, they wanted to make things right. Sophie had been blowing up my phone with calls and texts, begging for forgiveness. My parents wanted me to come home, saying they wanted to fix what had been broken. But I didn't know if I could. They had turned their backs on me without hesitation. They had assumed the worst of me, thrown me out, and left me to fend for myself. A part of me wanted to tell them all to go to hell. Let them sit with their guilt. Let them live with the consequences of what they did. But another part of me missed them. I missed my old life. I missed the feeling of belonging somewhere. And I wondered if there was any way to rebuild what had been lost. I was at a crossroads. Did I give them a chance to make amends, or did I keep moving forward on my own? It's been a while since my last post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone who gave me advice. It really helped me sort through my feelings. After a lot of soul-searching, I decided to meet with my family. Not because I was ready to forgive them, but because I felt like I owed it to myself to face them. If nothing else, I needed closure. We agreed to meet at a quiet little coffee shop in the next town over. I picked it because it was far enough from home that we wouldn't run into anyone we knew, but still easy for everyone to get to. The day of the meeting, I was a wreck. I hadn't seen them in years, and I had no idea how it was going to go. I got there early and grabbed a table in the corner, where we'd have some privacy. When they finally walked in, it hit me like a punch to the gut. Mom broke down the second she saw me. She looked older than I remembered, more gray in her hair, deeper lines around her eyes. Dad looked just as drained, his shoulders slumped like he'd been carrying the weight of the world. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. Sophie couldn't meet my eyes at first. She looked smaller, less sure of herself than the confident sister I once knew. We sat down, and for a while, no one knew how to start. Then, all at once, the apologies came spilling out. My parents admitted they had failed me, that they should have trusted me, should have stood by me instead of casting me out. They confessed that they had regretted their decision every single day but let pride and embarrassment keep them from reaching out sooner. Dad, usually a man of few words, spoke for what felt like hours. He told me he had replayed those moments over and over in his mind, trying to understand how he could have been so blind. He had always thought of himself as fair and level-headed, but in the moment that mattered most, emotion had clouded his judgment. Mom, tears streaming down her face, told me she had left my room exactly as I had left it, hoping I'd come back one day. She admitted that some nights, she'd wake up, thinking she'd heard me coming home, only to remember, with a sinking heart, that I wasn't there. Then there was Sophie. She broke down completely, sobbing as she told me she didn't think she'd ever be able to forgive herself for what she had done. She admitted that, despite being older, she had always looked up to me when we were kids. She said she got so wrapped up in her own life and problems that she lost sight of what really mattered. As they spoke, old memories came flooding back. I remembered the times Sophie had stood up for me when I was bullied in middle school. I thought of the late-night talks, the laughter, the secrets we had shared. And yet, those memories only made the betrayal sting more. I listened to everything they had to say, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive them, not yet. The wounds were too deep, the pain too fresh. I told them I needed time to process it all. They seemed to understand and didn't try to push me for more. Before we left, Mom asked if she could hug me, but I pulled away. I wasn't ready for that kind of closeness. The look on her face almost made me change my mind. Almost. But I knew I had to protect myself first. After that meeting, I went back to my apartment and sat with my thoughts. I questioned everything. Did I want to go back to my old life? Could I ever trust them again? Was it even worth trying to mend our relationship? I realized that while I missed having a family, I had grown in ways I never expected. I had built something for myself. I thought about my job at the warehouse, the online courses I had worked so hard to keep up with, the friendships I had formed. I wasn't the same person they had cast out years ago. The idea of giving all that up, of slipping back into the past, felt wrong. At the same time, seeing them again had stirred up emotions I wasn't sure how to handle. As much as I wanted to hate them, the truth was, I still loved them. I still missed them. And I couldn't help but wonder if there was a way to have them in my life without losing myself in the process. After a few days of agonizing over it, I finally made a decision. I called my parents and told them I appreciated their apology, but I wasn't ready to just forgive and forget. I needed time. Space. I also laid down some boundaries. I was open to staying in touch, but I wasn't moving back home, and I wasn't going to pretend none of it had happened. If we were going to rebuild something, it had to be on my terms. They were disappointed, but they said they understood. Mom asked if she could call once a week, just to check in. I agreed. It felt like a small but manageable step toward rebuilding trust. As for Sophie, I told her I wasn't ready. Her betrayal had cut the deepest, and I needed more time before I could even consider having a relationship with her again. She was clearly upset, but she said she'd wait for as long as I needed. It hasn't been easy. Some days, I wonder if I'm being too harsh, if I'm turning down a chance to truly make things right. But then I remember how quickly they abandoned me, how fast they assumed the worst, and I know I'm doing what's best for me. Lately, I've been looking into therapy. A lot of people suggested it, and I think they're right. It might help to talk to someone who can help me process all of this. I've never been to therapy before, so I'm a little nervous, but I figure it can't hurt. For now, my focus is on work and school. I've got a big project coming up at the warehouse, and I refuse to let all this family drama derail me. I'm also considering moving to a better place, something of my own, no more roommates. I've been saving up, and I think I'm finally ready. I'll update again if anything major changes. So far, I've been sticking to the boundaries I set with my family. We exchange occasional texts and phone calls, but nothing too deep. It's awkward sometimes, but not as painful as I expected. To their credit, my parents have respected my wishes. They check in, but they don't push. I can tell they're trying. They know it's going to take time, and for once, they seem willing to wait. It's a slow process, but I'm okay with that. My mom calls once a week, just like we agreed. At first, the conversations were awkward, full of long silences, but slowly, they've started feeling more natural. We mostly stick to neutral topics: her job at the hospital, the weather, my online courses. It's not much, but it's a start. Dad keeps in touch too, mostly through short emails. He never says much, just little check-ins or links to things he thinks I'd find interesting. Last week, he sent me an article about a new business opening in town. It was a small gesture, but it reminded me of how he used to clip newspaper stories for me when I was a kid. Sophie has had the hardest time with the distance I've put between us. She's sent me long, emotional texts, pouring out apologies and begging for a chance to fix things. I've only responded once, keeping it simple. I told her I still need time. I know she's struggling, but I can't prioritize her feelings over my own. I'm not ready to carry the weight of her guilt on top of my own pain. The biggest change in my life right now? I finally started therapy. I found a counselor who specializes in family trauma, and we've had a few sessions so far. Digging into all that old hurt hasn't been easy, but I can already tell it's helping. My therapist has been guiding me through my anger and trust issues, helping me set boundaries in a way that protects me without shutting everyone out completely. In our last session, we talked about how the ring situation wasn't just about the accusation, it was about years of feeling like I could never measure up to Sophie. It's made me realize that the cracks in my family dynamic started long before that night. Healing won't just be about forgiving them for what they did, it'll be about understanding and working through everything that came before it. One unexpected silver lining in all of this is how much closer I've grown to my friends, especially Lucas. He's been there for me through everything, never asking for anything in return. He even offered to come with me if I ever wanted to meet my family again, just to have some backup. This whole experience has shown me that family isn't just about blood, it's about the people who stand by you when everything falls apart. Work has been a good distraction. I've thrown myself into my job, and recently, I even got a small promotion. I'm now in charge of inventory management for my shift, more responsibility, a little pay bump. It's not life-changing, but it's something positive to focus on. As for my living situation, I've decided to stay put for now. My place isn't much, but it's mine, and that independence means everything. My parents offered to help me find a better place, but I turned them down. I need to do this on my own. Instead, I've started looking into furthering my education. There's a state university about an hour away that offers night classes, and I'm seriously considering applying to their business program. It's a big step, but I think I'm ready for it. Right now, I'm just taking things one day at a time. Some days are harder than others. There are moments when I miss the way things used to be, when our family was whole, when I didn't have to think so hard about trust and boundaries. But then I remember how fast they turned on me, how quickly they believed the worst. And I remind myself that healing can't be rushed. My therapist says it's okay to have mixed feelings. That I don't need to force forgiveness before I'm ready. We've been working on strategies for dealing with upcoming family gatherings and holidays, which, if I'm being honest, make me more anxious than I'd like to admit. For now, my priority is me, healing, growing, and building a future I can be proud of, whether my family is part of it or not. I'm learning that it's okay to put myself first. That setting boundaries doesn't make me a bad person. And that, maybe for the first time, I'm truly in control of my own life. A lot has changed. The biggest news? I'm moving. I was offered a new job in a different city, a huge step forward in my career. It's a management role at a logistics company, similar to what I did at the warehouse but on a much bigger scale. The pay is way better, and for the first time, I'll have real benefits, health insurance, a 401k. It feels like everything I've been working toward is finally paying off. Before making the decision, I had a long talk with my therapist. We went over how this move might affect my healing process, my relationship with my family, and my sense of stability. In the end, we both agreed, this is a good thing. It's a chance to fully stand on my own, to build something new without the weight of my past hanging over me. When I told my parents, they were surprised. And disappointed. Mom cried, saying she had hoped we'd have more time to rebuild before I left. Dad was quieter, but I could see the regret in his eyes. They both worried about me being alone in a new place, but I reassured them, I'll be okay. Because for the first time in years, I really believe that. Sophie took the news the hardest. When I told her I was moving, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, desperate to change my mind. She pleaded with me not to go, saying she felt like she was losing me all over again. It wasn't an easy conversation, but I stood my ground. I told her, as gently as I could, that this move wasn't about her, it was about me. Our relationship, while improving, wasn't in a place where her feelings could dictate my decisions. We've made progress, but there's still a long way to go. Over the past few months, we've had several family dinners. They've been uncomfortable at times, awkward in ways we never had to deal with before. But little by little, we're figuring out how to be in the same room again. Trust is still the biggest hurdle. Even now, I catch myself questioning their words, wondering if they truly mean what they say or if they're just trying to ease their guilt. That doubt is hard to shake. My therapist has been instrumental in helping me work through all of this. She's helped me untangle my emotions and set firm boundaries. One of the most important things she's taught me is that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending like none of this ever happened. It's about letting go of the anger, not for them, but for me. Carrying all that resentment was exhausting. It weighed me down in ways I didn't fully understand until I started working through it. And while I'll never forget what they did, I'm learning to forgive, not to absolve them, but to free myself. Now, as I pack up my life and prepare for this move, I've been reflecting on everything that's happened. A few years ago, I thought my life was over. I had lost my home, my family, my entire sense of security. But now, looking back, I see how much I've grown. I'm stronger. More independent. I have a clearer sense of my worth than I ever did before. As for the future, I don't know what it holds for me and my family. We've agreed to stay in touch once I relocate, weekly calls, visits during the holidays. It's a start. Maybe, with time and distance, we can build something new. Something better. But for now, my focus is on what's ahead. I'm excited about my new job, the new city, and the possibilities that come with it. I've been browsing apartments online, researching my new neighborhood, and mentally preparing for this fresh start. It's nerve-wracking, but mostly, I'm just ready. No matter what happens with my family, I know one thing for sure, I'm going to be okay. I've proven to myself that I can handle whatever life throws at me. And more importantly, I've learned the value of surrounding myself with people who truly support and believe in me, whether they share my blood or not.